Hey everyone, it's Miss Finnegan here, and we are going to be continuing to read Roald Dahl's James the Giant Peach. So we left off at chapter 27 when the Cloudmen were hailing hailstones at the peach, and after a while, the insects and James went inside back into the pit, and they thought it was all clear. So they're slowly emerging back on top of the peach in chapter 28. One by one, the travelers came out again on top of the peach and gazed carefully around. The moon was still shining as brightly as ever, and there were still plenty of huge shimmering cloud mountains on all sides. But there were no cloud men in sight now. The peach is leaking, shouted the gold-green grasshopper peering over the side. It's full of holes and juices dripping out everywhere. That does it, cried the earthworm. If this peach is leaking, then we shall surely sink. Don't be like that, Centipede shouted. We're not in the water now. Oh, look, shouted the ladybug. Look, look, look over there. Everyone swung around to look. In the distance and directly ahead of them, they now saw the most extraordinary sight. There was kind of an arch, a colossal curvy-shaped thing that reached high up into the sky and came right down on both ends. The ends were resting upon two huge flat clouds that were as big as a desert. Now what in the world is that? Asked James. It's a bridge. It's an enormous hoop cut in half. It's a giant horseshoe standing upside down. Stop me if I'm wrong, murmured Centipede, going white in the face. But might those be cloudmen climbing all over it? There was actually a dreadful silence. The peach floated closer and closer. They are cloudmen. There are hundreds of them. Thousands? Millions? I don't want to hear about it, shrieked the poor blind earthworm. I'd rather be at the end of a fish hook and used as bait than come up against those terrible creatures ever again. I'd rather be fried alive and eaten by anyone, wailed the old green grasshopper. Please keep quiet, whispered James. It's our only hope. They crouched down very still on top of the peach, staring at the cloudmen. The whole surface of the cloud was literally swarming with them, and there were hundreds more above, climbing on the big arch. But what is that thing? The ladybug said. And what are they doing to it? I don't care what they're doing to it, said the centipede, scuttling over the tunnel entrance. I'm not staying up here. Goodbye. But the rest of them were too frightened or too hypnotized by the whole affair to make a move. Do what you want. But do you know what? James said. What? They answered. What? That enormous arch. They seem to be painting it. They've got paint cans and paintbrushes. Look! And he was right. The travelers were close enough now to see exactly what the cloudmen were doing. They all had huge brushes in their hands, and they were splashing the paint on the great curvy arch in a frenzy of speed, so fast, in fact, that in a few minutes the whole arch became covered with the most glorious colors. Red, blues, greens, yellows, and purples. It's a rainbow, everyone said at once. They're making a rainbow. Oh, isn't it beautiful? Just look at those colors. Centipede, they shouted, you must come up and see this. They were so enthralled by the beauty of the brilliance of the rainbow that they forgot to keep their voices low. The centipede poked his head out cautiously. Well, he said, I've always wondered how those things were made, but why all the ropes? What are they doing with those ropes? Good heavens, they're pushing it off the cloud, James said. There it goes, they're lowering it down to the earth with their ropes. And I'll tell you something else, the centipede said. If I'm not greatly mistaken, we ourselves are gonna bump right into it. Bless my soul, he is right, the grasshopper exclaimed. The rainbow was now dangling in the air above the cloud. The peach was also just below the level of the cloud, and it was heading directly towards the rainbow, traveling fast. We are lost, Miss Spider said. And I can't take it, the earthworm said. Tell me what's happening. We're going to miss it, shouted Ladybug. No, we're not. Yes, we are. Yes, no, yes. Oh. And suddenly, there was a tremendous flood, and the peach crashing into part of the rainbow, followed by an awful splintering noise, and an enormous rainbow snapped right across the middle and became two separate pieces. The next thing that happened was extremely unfortunate. The ropes that the cloudmen had been using to lower the rainbow got tangled up with the silk strings that were attached to the seagulls on the peach. The peach was trapped. Panic and pandemonium broke out among the travelers, and James Henry Trotter, glancing up quickly, saw the faces of thousands of furious cloud men peering down at them over the edge of the cloud. Their faces almost had no shape at all because of the long white hairs that covered them. There were no noses, no mouths, no ears, no chins. Only eyes were visible on each face, two small black eyes glinting malevolently through the hairs. Then they came down, most frightening thing at all. One cloudman with a huge hairy creature who must have been 14 feet tall at least, suddenly stood up and made a tremendous leap off the side of the cloud, trying to get one of the silk strings above the peach. James and his friends saw him going flying through the air above them, his arms outstretched in front of him, reaching for the nearest string, and they saw him grab it, cling to the with his hands and legs on the string, and then very slowly, hand over hand, he began to come down the string towards the peach. "Mercy! Help us! Save us!" cried the ladybug. "He's coming down. He's going to eat us. Jump overboard." "Then eat the earthworm first," Centipede cried. "It's not going to be me. I'm full of bones." "Centipede," yelled James, "quickly, bite through the string. The one he's coming down." The centipede rushed over to the stem and took the string in his teeth and bit through with one snap of his jaw. Immediately far below them, a single seagull was seen to come away from the rest of the flock and going flying off with a string trailing from its neck. Clinging desperately to the end of the string, shouting and mad with fury, was a huge hairy cloudman. Up and up he went, swinging across the moonlit sky, and James Henry Trotter, watching with delight, said, "My goodness, he must weigh almost nothing at all. For one seagull to be able to pull him up like that, he must be all air and hair." The rest of the cloudmen were so flabbergasted to see their company carried away in this manner that they let go of the ropes they were holding. And then, of course, down went the rainbow, both halves of it all together, tumbling towards the earth below. This freed the peach, which at once began sailing from the terrible cloud. But the travelers were not in the clear yet. The infuriated cloudmen jumped up and ran along at the cloud, pelting mercilessly with all sorts of hard, horrible objects: empty paint cans, paint buckets, paint brushes, step ladders, stools, saucepans, frying pans, rotten eggs, dead rats, bottles of hair oil. Anything these brutes could lay their hands on, they came down and flung at the peach. One cloudman, taking very careful aim, tipped a gallon of thick purple paint over the edge of the cloud right onto the centipede himself. The centipede screamed with anger. "My legs! They're sticking together. I can't walk. My eyelids won't open. I can't see. And my boots are ruined." But for a moment, everyone was far too busy dodging things that the cloudmen were throwing to pay attention to the centipede. "The paint is drying," he moaned. "It's gonna hard. I can't move my legs. I can't move anything." "You can still move your mouth," the earthworm said, "and that is a great pity." "James," bawled the centipede, "please help me. Wash off this paint. Scrape it off. Anything." Chapter 29. It seemed like a long time before the seagulls were able to pull the peach away from the horrible rainbow cloud, but they managed it, and then everybody gathered around the wretched centipede and began arguing about the best way to get paint off his body. He did look like a sight. He was purple all over, and now the paint was beginning to dry and harden, and he was forced to sit very stiff and still and upright, as though he were encased in cement, and all 42 of his legs were sticking straight out in front of him like rods. He tried to say something, but his lips wouldn't move. All he could do now was to make a gurgling noise with his throat. The old green grasshopper reached out and touched him carefully on the stomach. "But how could it possibly have dried so quickly?" he asked. "It's rainbow paint," James answered. "Rainbow paint dries very, very quick and very, very hard." "I detest paint," Spider announced. "It frightens me. It reminds me of Aunt Spiker, the late Aunt Spiker. I mean, because the last time she painted her kitchen ceiling, my poor darling grandmother stepped into it by mistake, and when it was still wet, and there she stuck. And all through the night we could hear her calling to us, saying, 'Help me! Help! Help!' And it was heartbreaking to listen to, but what could we do? Not a thing until the next day when the paint had dried, and then of course we all rushed over there and calmed her down and gave her some food. Believe it or not, she lived for 6 months like that, upside down on a ceiling with her legs stuck permanently to paint. She really did. We fed her every day. We brought her fresh flies straight from the web. But then on the 26th day of April last, Aunt Sponge, the late Aunt Sponge, happened to go and glance up at the ceiling and spotted her. 'A spider!' she cried. 'A disgusting spider. Quick, fetch me the mop with the long handle.' And then, oh, so awful, I can't bear to think of it." Miss Spider wiped away a tear. "You poor thing," muttered Ladybug. "I do feel sorry for you." "It'll never come off," said Earthworm. "Our centipede will never move again. He will turn into a statue, and we shall be able to put him in the middle of the lawn, with a bird bath on top of his head." "We could try peeling him like a banana," the old green grasshopper said. "Or rubbing him with sandpaper," the ladybug said. "Now, if he could stick out his tongue," the earthworm said, smiling a little bit, "if he could stick it out really far, then we could catch a hold of it and start pulling. And if we pulled hard enough, we could turn him inside out, and then he would have new skin." There was a pause while the others considered this interesting proposal. "I think," James said slowly, I think that's the best thing to do. Then he stopped. What was that? He asked quickly. I heard a voice. I heard somebody shouting. And we will do chapter 30 another day.